The courthouse stood like a sentinel of justice, its limestone facade weathered by decades of human stories. Sunlight filtered through tall, arched windows, casting geometric patterns across the worn marble floors. Judge William Harris arrived early, as he always did, his leather briefcase worn but meticulously maintained, much like the man himself. At 58, Harris had presided over thousands of cases, each one leaving an invisible mark on his consciousness. His salt and pepper hair was neatly combed, his navy blue suit pressed with military precision. He moved with the measured confidence of someone who had long ago mastered the art of commanding a courtroom. The morning docket was typical, a mix of minor infractions, preliminary hearings, and routine legal proceedings. Harris reviewed his files, his reading glasses perched on the bridge of his nose, fingers tracing the margins of documents with practiced efficiency. When Amanda Reynolds entered the courtroom, the atmosphere subtly shifted. She walked with a deliberate grace, her deep burgundy blazer a stark contrast against the muted tones of the judicial environment. Her legal portfolio was a rich mahogany leather, secured under her arm with the same precision she applied to her professional life. Amanda was 38, a federal prosecutor with a reputation for exceptional preparation and unwavering integrity. Her skin was a rich, warm brown, her posture radiating confidence that came from years of navigating complex legal landscapes. Her hair was styled in neat professional braids that framed her face, each strand seemingly as carefully organized as her legal arguments. As she approached the clerk's desk, Harris observed her from his elevated position. Years of judicial experience had trained him to read people quickly, their body language, their preparedness, their underlying motivations. Something about Amanda intrigued him. She wasn't just another lawyer passing through his courtroom. There was a depth to her presence, a quiet strength that demanded attention. The morning's first case was procedurally complex, a motion challenging the admissibility of evidence in an ongoing investigation. Amanda stood confidently, her voice clear and measured. She spoke not just with legal knowledge, but with a profound understanding of the nuanced implications of each argument. Harris listened carefully, his initial skepticism gradually giving way to genuine interest. Her arguments were methodical, each point constructed like a precise architectural design. She wasn't just presenting a legal argument, she was constructing a narrative that challenged existing perspectives. "Ms. Reynolds," Harris interrupted, his voice carrying the weight of decades of judicial experience, "you're suggesting that the evidence collection process fundamentally compromised the integrity of the investigation." Amanda's response was immediate, her tone respectful but unequivocal. "Your Honor, it's not a suggestion. The documentation clearly demonstrates multiple procedural violations that render the current evidence inadmissible." The courtroom seemed to hold its breath. Other lawyers shifted in their seats, recognizing the significance of the moment. Harris leaned forward, his glasses catching the morning light, his expression a complex mixture of professional evaluation and growing respect. What neither Harris nor Amanda realized in that moment was how this single interaction would become a pivotal point in both of their professional journeys. The legal motion was more than a routine proceeding. It was the beginning of an unexpected dialogue, a bridge between different experiences, perspectives, and understanding. The morning was just beginning, and the story was far from over. The courtroom hummed with a quiet intensity that only legal professionals truly understand. Sunlight continued to slice through the tall windows, creating a sharp contrast between light and shadow, much like the legal arguments being presented. Amanda Reynolds stood her ground, her recent argument still hanging in the air. Judge Harris leaned back in his chair, a habit he'd developed over decades of judicial service. His fingers drummed a subtle rhythm against the polished wooden bench, a telltale sign of his internal deliberation. "Ms. Reynolds," Harris began, his voice carrying the weight of decades of judicial experience, "your argument is compelling, but not without its complications." The other lawyers in the courtroom watched with barely concealed interest. This was more than a routine hearing. This was a battle of legal intellects, a delicate dance of professional respect and challenge. Amanda's response was immediate. "Your Honor, The complications you reference are precisely why this motion must be considered. The systematic failures in evidence collection cannot be overlooked simply because they create administrative challenges. Her words were like precision instruments, carefully crafted, razor-sharp, leaving no room for casual dismissal. Harris recognized this immediately. He'd seen countless lawyers come through his courtroom, but few possessed Amanda's ability to dismantle complex legal arguments with such surgical precision. The case involved a complicated investigation into corporate fraud. Multiple agencies had been involved, and the evidence collection process had been anything but straightforward. Amanda had identified critical procedural errors that could potentially compromise the entire case. Harris studied her carefully. Her burgundy blazer was immaculate, her posture perfect. But it wasn't just her appearance that caught his attention. It was the depth of her understanding, the way she navigated the intricate legal landscape with a combination of passion and professional detachment. "You're suggesting," Harris said, removing his glasses and cleaning them with a small cloth, "that these procedural errors are not merely technical oversights, but fundamental violations of investigative protocol." "Precisely, Your Honor," Amanda responded. Her voice was steady, her gaze direct. She wasn't challenging Harris. She was inviting him into a deeper examination of the legal complexities at hand. The other lawyers in the courtroom watched the exchange with a mix of admiration and professional curiosity. This was more than a legal argument. This was a masterclass in judicial reasoning. Harris knew he was at a crossroads. He could take the path of least resistance, accept the existing evidence, and move the case forward. Or he could do the more challenging work of truly examining the procedural failures Amanda had exposed. His mind drifted momentarily to his own early days as a young lawyer. He remembered the mentors who had challenged him, who had pushed him to look beyond the surface of legal arguments. Those memories seemed to whisper to him now, urging a more nuanced approach. Amanda waited, her composure unbroken. She wasn't pleading or desperate. She was presenting a professional challenge, backed by meticulous research and a deep commitment to legal integrity. The tension in the courtroom was palpable, each moment stretched, filled with unspoken possibilities. Harris knew his next words would be crucial. They would reveal not just his decision on this specific motion, but something more profound about his approach to justice. "Ms. Reynolds," he finally said, his voice measured, "I believe we need to take a more comprehensive look at these evidence collection procedures." A subtle shift occurred in the courtroom. It was more than a legal decision. It was a moment of professional respect, a recognition of something deeper than the immediate legal challenge. Neither Harris nor Amanda fully understood it yet, but this moment was the first thread in a much larger tapestry of understanding that was about to unfold. The courthouse cafeteria buzzed with a quiet energy typical of midday legal professionals. Lawyers, clerks, and court staff moved between tables, their conversations a low murmur of legal jargon and professional gossip. It was here, amid the bland institutional decor and the smell of institutional coffee, that an unexpected conversation would begin to reshape two professional lives. Judge Harris sat alone, his lunch, a carefully prepared sandwich and a cup of black coffee, arranged with the same precision he applied to his courtroom proceedings. He was reviewing case notes, his reading glasses perched low on his nose, when a shadow fell across his table. "May I join you, Your Honor?" Amanda Reynolds stood nearby, her professional portfolio tucked under her arm, a subtle challenge in her posture. Harris looked up, momentarily surprised. In decades of judicial service, such direct approaches were rare. "Please," he gestured to the chair across from him. As Amanda sat, the dynamics of the room seemed to subtly shift. She didn't wait for pleasantries, instead diving directly into the heart of the matter. "The evidence collection procedures we discussed this morning represent a systemic issue that goes beyond this single case." Her directness was unexpected. Most lawyers would have approached such a conversation with more circumspection, more political maneuvering. But Amanda Reynolds was not most lawyers. Harris took a measured sip of his coffee. "You've been tracking these procedural issues for some time, I gather." 3 years, Amanda responded promptly. not just tracking, documenting, challenging. These aren't simple administrative errors. They represent fundamental breakdowns in investigative protocols that can compromise entire legal processes. Her passion was evident, but it was a controlled passion, not an emotional outburst, but a carefully constructed professional argument. Harris recognized the difference immediately. This wasn't about grandstanding. This was about genuine commitment to legal integrity. The cafeteria around them continued its quiet hum. Nearby, a group of young lawyers laughed, their conversation a stark contrast to the intense dialogue at Harris's table. But they seemed oblivious to the profound professional dialogue unfolding just feet away. "You realize," Harris said, his voice low, "challenging these procedures means taking on entire investigative departments. It's not a simple task." Amanda's response was immediate. "Justice isn't about simple tasks, Your Honor. It's about consistent, principled application of legal standards." Something shifted in that moment. Harris saw beyond the professional exterior. He saw a dedicated professional who understood that law was more than paperwork and procedural checklists. It was about protecting fundamental rights, ensuring fair treatment for everyone who entered the judicial system. Their conversation continued, moving from the specific case to broader systemic challenges. Amanda shared research. Harris offered historical context. It was less a conversation and more a collaborative exploration of legal complexities. Other professionals in the cafeteria began to notice. Whispers, subtle glances, a white judge in deep, engaged conversation with a black female prosecutor. This wasn't typical courthouse dynamics. But Harris and Amanda were oblivious to the peripheral attention. They were lost in a dialogue that transcended racial, generational, and professional boundaries. Each was learning, challenging, and respecting the other's perspective. As their lunch hour drew to a close, Harris realized something profound had occurred. This wasn't just a legal discussion. This was the beginning of a deeper understanding of the law, of each other, of the complex systems that shaped their professional worlds. "Ms. Reynolds," Harris said as they prepared to leave, "I believe we need to continue this conversation." Amanda smiled, the first genuine smile she'd offered during their interaction. "I believe we do, Your Honor." The cafeteria returned to its usual rhythm, unaware that a significant moment of professional and personal transformation had just quietly unfolded. The administrative offices of the federal courthouse hummed with quiet intensity. Stacks of case files, meticulously organized digital databases, and the soft clicking of keyboards created a symphony of legal infrastructure. It was here, away from the dramatic courtroom scenes, that the true work of justice unfolded. Claudia Martinez, the senior court administrator, was reviewing Amanda Reynolds' professional file when her colleague, Robert Thompson, approached her desk. He carried a steaming cup of coffee and a look of professional curiosity. "Have you seen Reynolds' latest case record?" Robert asked, leaning against the desk. Claudia nodded, her fingers tracing the digital profile. Amanda's professional journey was nothing short of extraordinary. Harvard Law graduate, top of her class, with a record of prosecutorial excellence that stood out even in a highly competitive legal landscape. 3 major corporate fraud cases in the last 2 years, Claudia mentioned, her tone a mix of professional admiration and careful analysis. Each one more complex than the last, and she's managed to secure convictions in 92% of her cases. The file told a story of remarkable achievement. Amanda had navigated some of the most challenging legal terrains, consistently proving herself in a system that had historically been less than welcoming to professionals of color. Across town, Judge Harris was having his own moment of reflection. In his private chambers, surrounded by law books that had been his companions for decades, he pulled out an old photo album. Images of his early years in the legal profession spread before him. A journey that spanned nearly 4 decades of judicial service. He found himself thinking about Amanda Reynolds, not just as a lawyer appearing in his courtroom, but as a professional who seemed to embody a new generation of legal excellence. His personal library was a testament to his journey. Books on constitutional law, civil rights, judicial process. Each volume marked the evolution of his understanding. Harris had always considered himself a fair judge, but fair was a complex concept. It wasn't just about following the letter of the law, but understanding its spirit. A phone call interrupted his reflections. It was Martin Lawrence, a longtime colleague and respected senior prosecutor. "William," Martin's voice carried a tone of professional excitement. "Have you met Amanda Reynolds yet? She's reshaping how we approach systemic legal challenges." Harris listened as Martin shared more details. Amanda's recent work had attracted attention from national legal committees. She wasn't just prosecuting cases, she was identifying and challenging systemic legal vulnerabilities that many had overlooked for years. Her recent investigation into cross-jurisdictional corporate fraud had been particularly noteworthy. She had connected dots that most investigators had missed, revealing a complex network of financial misconduct that spanned multiple states. Back in the administrative offices, Claudia pulled up additional background information. Amanda's path hadn't been easy. As a first-generation professional from a working-class background, she had navigated challenges that went far beyond legal complexities. Her academic record was impeccable: scholarships, academic honors, recommendations that read like roadmaps of exceptional potential. But it was more than academic achievement. It was her approach to law, seeing it not just as a profession, but as a tool for social understanding and transformation. As the afternoon light filtered through the courthouse windows, multiple professional narratives were quietly converging. Amanda Reynolds was more than just another prosecutor. She represented a generation of legal professionals committed to pushing boundaries, challenging existing systems, and reimagining justice. Judge Harris, reviewing her file, felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Not just professional respect, but a genuine sense of curiosity. What could he learn from this remarkable professional? The day was far from over, and the most interesting chapters were yet to be written. The annual Judicial Professional Development Conference was not typically a place of profound personal transformation. Rows of conference rooms, standardized presentations, and networking sessions usually blended into a monotonous professional landscape. But this year would be different. Amanda Reynolds stood at the podium, her presentation on systemic legal reform cutting through the conventional conference atmosphere like a precision instrument. Her slides were meticulously crafted, each data point a testament to years of careful research and professional dedication. Judge Harris sat in the third row, his notebook open, his glasses perched carefully on the bridge of his nose. He was no longer just a passive listener. He was actively engaging with every nuance of her presentation. "The critical failure in our current investigative protocols," Amanda explained, her voice clear and authoritative, "isn't about individual misconduct. It's about systemic blind spots that perpetuate unequal legal outcomes." Her research was comprehensive. She wasn't just pointing out problems. She was presenting potential systematic solutions. Case studies from multiple jurisdictions, statistical analyses, and proposed procedural reforms created a holistic view of legal system challenges. During the Q&A session, Harris raised his hand. The room noticed. A senior judge actively engaging with a relatively young prosecutor was unexpected. "Ms. Reynolds," he began, "your analysis of procedural disparities is compelling. But how do you propose we implement these changes within existing institutional frameworks?" It was not a challenge. It was a genuine inquiry, a professional invitation to deeper dialogue. Amanda's response was immediate and nuanced. "Implementation requires a multi-level approach, Your Honor. It's about training, accountability, and creating transparent review mechanisms that go beyond surface-level diversity initiatives." The room fell silent. This wasn't a typical conference presentation. This was a masterclass in institutional analysis. During the lunch break, several senior legal professionals approached Amanda, but Harris was the first to extend a genuine professional invitation. "Would you be interested in discussing your research further?" he asked, his tone professional but genuinely curious. Their conversation moved from the conference hall to a quiet corner of the hotel's professional meeting space. Amanda shared the personal journey behind her research, growing up in a community where legal systems often felt more like barriers than protectors of justice. Harris listened, not just with his ears, but with a growing sense of professional humility. He recognized that his decades of judicial experience didn't make him an expert on every aspect of the legal system. "My generation of judges," he admitted candidly, "we thought we were being fair, but fair isn't enough. We need to be actively understanding." Amanda appreciated the honesty. This wasn't a performative moment. This was a genuine professional reflection. As their conversation continued, something remarkable happened. Two professionals from different generations, different racial backgrounds, different life experiences found a common language. The language of genuine legal integrity. They discussed more than legal technicalities. They explored the human stories behind legal statistics, the families impacted by systemic failures, the communities waiting for meaningful justice. Outside the conference room, the world continued its usual pace. Lawyers rushed between meetings, administrators processed paperwork, the machinery of the legal system moved forward. But inside this small conversation, something profound was happening. A bridge was being constructed, not just between two professionals, but between different understanding of justice, of institutional change, of human potential. Judge Harris and Amanda Reynolds were no longer just a judge and a prosecutor. They were becoming collaborators in a much larger conversation about what justice could truly mean. The conference would continue, but something had fundamentally shifted. The federal courthouse's administrative wing typically hummed with predictable bureaucratic energy. But today, something felt different. Whispers circulated, subtle glances exchanged between legal staff who sensed something unusual was brewing. Judge Harris had done something unprecedented. He had formally requested a comprehensive review of recent case files, specifically focusing on procedural integrity, a direct result of his conversations with Amanda Reynolds. His request wasn't just a routine administrative move, it was a statement. A senior judge openly acknowledging potential systemic issues and committing to meaningful investigation was rare. More than rare, it was transformative. Amanda received the official communication in her office, her name embossed on the door. Federal Prosecutor, Special Investigations Unit. She recognized immediately the significance of Harris' request. The file review wasn't just about technical legal procedures. It was about examining how justice was truly implemented beyond the black and white text of legal documents. Her colleague, Michael Rodriguez, noticed her concentrated expression. "Something big?" he asked, leaning against her office doorframe. "More than big," Amanda responded. "This could be a turning point for how we approach institutional accountability." Harris, meanwhile, was experiencing his own professional transformation. Decades of judicial service had taught him many lessons, but nothing quite prepared him for this moment of personal and professional reflection. His conversations with Amanda had done more than challenge his professional perspectives. They had invited him to reimagine his entire understanding of judicial responsibility. The administrative process was meticulous. Each case file was carefully examined, procedural nuances dissected with surgical precision. Amanda was invited to lead a special advisory committee, her expertise recognized not as a courtesy, but as a critical professional asset. Senior legal administrators watched carefully. This wasn't just another review. This was a potential blueprint for systemic change. During one particularly intense review session, Harris made a surprising suggestion. "We need external perspectives," he said, "not just internal legal professionals, but community representatives, academic researchers." Amanda recognized the significance. It wasn't just about legal technicalities. It was about understanding justice from multiple perspectives. Their professional collaboration began attracting attention, not the sensationalist kind, but a genuine, substantive professional interest. Legal journals started requesting interviews. Professional conferences began reaching out. But for Harris and Amanda, it was never about recognition. It was about genuine institutional transformation. One afternoon, as they reviewed a particularly complex set of case files, Harris shared a personal reflection. "When I first started in the judicial system," he said, "we thought following the letter of the law was enough. Now I realize how much we missed." Amanda listened, recognizing the vulnerability in his statement. This wasn't an apology. This was a genuine commitment to growth. Their work was creating ripples far beyond their immediate professional environment. Other judges began requesting similar comprehensive reviews. Prosecutors in different jurisdictions started examining their own procedural approaches. The legal community was watching a remarkable professional dialogue unfold, one that challenged existing paradigms without resorting to accusation or defensiveness. As the day drew to a close, Amanda prepared a comprehensive report. Not just a document, but a roadmap for potential institutional transformation. Harris reviewed her draft, his glasses reflecting the soft office light. Each recommendation was carefully considered, each suggestion backed by rigorous research and a deep commitment to justice. "This," he said, looking up at Amanda, "this is how real change happens." Their professional journey was far from over, but they had already created something remarkable. A bridge of understanding that promised to reshape how justice was conceived, implemented, and experienced. The courthouse stood silent, a witness to this quiet revolution. The National Legal Reform Symposium was unlike any previous conference. Where past events had been theoretical discussions, this gathering carried the weight of tangible transformation. At the center of it all stood Judge William Harris and Federal Prosecutor Amanda Reynolds, their collaborative research becoming a beacon of institutional change. Their presentation wasn't just a series of slides and statistics. It was a narrative of systemic evolution, demonstrating how individual commitment could reshape entire legal infrastructures. Amanda took the podium first, her burgundy blazer a statement of professional confidence. "We're not here to criticize," she began. "We're here to reimagine." Her presentation walked through their comprehensive research, a meticulous examination of procedural inconsistencies that had long been overlooked. Data visualization showed stark disparities in case processing, sentencing patterns, and investigative protocols. Harris sat nearby, no longer just a senior judge, but a partner in this groundbreaking work. His presence was a powerful statement, a senior white judge publicly supporting and amplifying the research of a black female prosecutor. Legal scholars from across the country leaned forward. This wasn't just another academic presentation. This was a blueprint for institutional transformation. The goal, Amanda explained, isn't to assign blame. It's to create a system that genuinely serves justice for every community. Behind the scenes, their collaboration had already sparked significant conversations. The Department of Justice had taken notice, requesting detailed briefings. Academic legal departments were redesigning curriculum based on their findings. During a break, younger legal professionals surrounded them, not as fans, but as serious professionals seeking guidance. A young black lawyer asked Amanda about navigating systemic challenges. A junior judge approached Harris, seeking advice on creating more inclusive judicial practices. Their impact extended beyond the conference walls. Local bar associations began implementing training programs based on their research. Law schools started incorporating their findings into core curriculum. Harris reflected on his journey. Decades of judicial service had prepared him for many things, but not for this profound moment of personal and professional transformation. He wasn't just witnessing change, he was an active participant in creating it. Amanda saw something deeper happening. This wasn't just about legal reform. This was about rebuilding trust in institutional systems that had long failed many communities. Their research highlighted critical issues, from unconscious bias in investigative procedures to systemic barriers that prevented equitable legal outcomes. But more importantly, they offered concrete, actionable solutions. During the afternoon panel, Harris made a statement that would be quoted in legal journals for years to come. "True justice," he said, "isn't about maintaining a system. It's about continually improving it." Media coverage began to shift. What could have been a story about institutional conflict became a narrative of collaborative transformation. National news outlets featured their work, not as a sensational story, but as a serious exploration of institutional evolution. Amanda's family watched with quiet pride. Her parents, who had navigated their own challenges in previous generations, saw their daughter not just succeeding, but fundamentally changing systems. As the symposium concluded, invitations poured in. Federal agencies, judicial committees, academic institutions, all wanted to learn more about their collaborative approach. But for Harris and Amanda, the real work was just beginning. Their research was a starting point, not a conclusion. They understood that institutional change was a continuous journey, requiring constant reflection, adaptation, and genuine commitment. In a quiet moment between sessions, they shared an understanding look. This wasn't about individual achievement. This was about creating pathways for future generations of legal professionals. The legal landscape was changing, and they were at the forefront of that transformation. 5 years had passed since that first unexpected encounter in the courtroom. The legal landscape had transformed in ways neither Judge William Harris nor Amanda Reynolds could have initially imagined. Their collaborative work had become a model for institutional reform across the United States. Law schools now used their research as a cornerstone of curriculum development. Judicial training programs incorporated their insights into unconscious bias and systemic accountability. On a crisp autumn morning, they sat together in Harris's chambers, no longer just professional colleagues, but true partners in a mission larger than themselves. "Who would have thought," Harris said, a slight smile crossing his weathered face, "that one courtroom interaction would lead to all of this?" Amanda's laugh was warm, genuine. "Certainly not me that morning when I first stood before you." Their office told a story of transformation. Alongside traditional legal volumes were their published research, academic citations, and recognition from national legal institutions. Framed photographs captured moments of their collaborative journey. Speaking at conferences, meeting with community leaders, testifying before congressional committees. Their work had gone far beyond legal technicalities. They had fundamentally reimagined what justice could look like, not as a static concept, but as a living, breathing system committed to continuous improvement. The research they'd developed had concrete, measurable impacts. Conviction rates became more consistent across different communities. Investigative procedures became more transparent. Young lawyers entering the system had new tools to recognize and address systemic challenges. Harris reflected on his own journey. He had entered the judicial system believing he was fair. Now he understood that fairness required active engagement, continuous learning, and a willingness to challenge long-held assumptions. Amanda had become more than a prosecutor. She was a systemic architect, redesigning legal infrastructures to be more just, more equitable, more human. Their collaboration had sparked a national conversation. It wasn't about division or blame, but about collective growth. Legal professionals across generations and backgrounds were now having conversations that would have been unimaginable just a few years earlier. A young law student intern entered the office, carrying case files. She looked at Harris and Amanda with a sense of reverence. These weren't just legal professionals. They were change makers. "Your work," the intern said, "it's changed everything about how we think about justice." Harris and Amanda exchanged a knowing look. Their journey was never about personal recognition. It was about creating pathways for future generations. Their personal lives had also transformed. They had become mentors, speakers, catalysts for institutional change. Speaking engagements took them across the country, sharing their insights with law enforcement, judicial committees, community organizations. But more importantly, they had developed a friendship that transcended professional boundaries. Their conversations went beyond legal technicalities, exploring human experiences, systemic challenges, and the continuous journey of understanding. As the afternoon light filtered through the courthouse windows, they continued working. Not with the intensity of their earlier years, but with a refined, thoughtful approach that came from deep understanding. "We've come a long way," Amanda said, reviewing the new research draft. Harris nodded. And we're still learning. Their story was never about a single moment of transformation. It was about continuous growth, about listening, about being willing to challenge one's own perspectives. The legal system they had helped reshape was more than a set of procedures. It was a living testament to what was possible when professionals approached their work with genuine curiosity, respect, and a commitment to understanding. Outside, the world continued its complex dance. But inside this office, a quiet revolution continued. One conversation, one case, one understanding at a time.